Hi, welcome to the Foundations of Cybersecurity, the first step in your NCTA journey. Um, a quick brief look at the modules. Module 1 is all about creating a cyberspace that we can trust, and that is trustworthy. Module 2, we talk about principles, methods, tools to make that trustworthy system. Module 3, we talk about vulnerabilities and exploits and attacks. See, it's red, it's danger. Module 4 is defending data in the digital deluge. So it's very alliterative. In Module 5, we bring that all into context. So we are here for this overview to introduce ourselves and the methodology behind the course. We want to set you up to learn and use then what you learn in this course with your students. My name is Mark Emery. I am a recently retired as of May of 2024. Taught 32 years in the public schools. The last 20 or so cybersecurity and computer science. I'm also the AP Computer Science Principals Assistant to the Chief Reader. I've worked with Dr. Dark for about 8 years now, and I'm so excited to be on this journey with you.
Thanks, Mark. As Mark said, my name is Melissa Dark. I started in cybersecurity education in 2000. I was hired at Purdue's Cybersecurity Center. I spent the next 14, 15 years helping grow cybersecurity in higher education across other universities, then to community colleges. It was 2014, 2015. I got contacted by the National Security Agency and the National Science Foundation. They had decided to fund a new initiative called Gen Cyber, which was summer camps in cybersecurity for teachers and also for students. And they wanted to know, would I help them start that up? That is what launched my journey into high school cybersecurity education. And that is the genesis for NCTA, right? Because I had been seeing and interacting with teachers who were going to week-long summer camps. And I knew that we were having teachers in high school teach full semester and full year-long courses, and that a one-week summer camp wasn't enough professional development for them, that they needed something more. And so 2021, we wrote the first NCTA grant to provide a graduate certificate to teachers with a scholarship, as you know. And so we've had 4 cohorts of teachers now. We had a group that started in 22, another group in 23, 24, and now your group here in 2025. So as Mark said, what we want to do is not just introduce ourselves, but give you some background that helps you understand the methodology of this particular course, because it's been really purposeful. So the first thing that we want you to know is that this course approaches cybersecurity as being about more than merely technology. So you will see throughout this course that we emphasize how we build secure systems, how we operate and maintain and keep systems secure, and how we try to live with digital systems, given our reliance on them, in a manner that keeps us as safe or as trustworthy as we can, as Mark said earlier. The course emphasizes the importance of design decisions, intentional behavior towards security as opposed to reactive security. The course also heavily emphasizes the role of human behavior. We get into some interesting perspectives in Module 3, where we start diving into what are vulnerabilities, why can't we get rid of all of them? and how do attackers exploit things that we think are features, we think are pluses? How do those same pluses actually become minuses when they're used in ways we hadn't expected? Because, ultimately, we think you have to have a pretty deep understanding of design decisions, human behaviors, how features become flaws, in order to defend systems, to defend hospital systems, electric grid systems, the global financial infrastructure. So the course takes a pretty, I think, broad and inclusive view of what we're doing in cybersecurity, while still trying to provide enough depth that this is a solid foundation, right? So we view a foundation as being, if you understand this, you're prepared to go on and learn more. You're really prepared now to learn more about the field. And that brings me to the bullet that you see about these curriculum guidelines called CSEC. So cybersecurity in higher education started nearly 30 years ago. So it's been around for a long time, but it was not until 2017 that we got a set of curriculum guidelines that we could use to accredit undergraduate cybersecurity programs. The set of curriculum guidelines is called CSEC, cybersecurity. CSEC guidelines are published by a professional society called ACM, the Association for Computing Machinery, which publishes all of the curriculum guidelines for accrediting computing programs at the collegiate level. So CSEC was a really big and valuable contribution for cybersecurity at the collegiate level. It helped specify, regardless of whether the cybersecurity program was in computer science, computer engineering, business, networking, IT, IS, regardless of whether your cybersecurity program was in any of those host departments. It said this is what has to be in a foundational core of cybersecurity at the collegiate level. So that was a big deal. Why am I telling you about CSEC? Here's why. The one thing that CSEC didn't do is carve out and tell you what would go in a freshman level college course in cybersecurity. And that's important because if we know what goes in a freshman level course for schools who are interested in offering dual credit or early college credit courses in high school, so hopefully many, most of you are interested in that. So if we can say what goes in a freshman course, we can also say what should go in a course at the high school level for a junior or senior that would count for college credit. So this particular supplement does exactly that. I've given you the URL. It takes you to a document that looks like this. And Mark and I are only going to talk about this at a high level in this overview. This entire supplement is the basis for the course you're taking here. It's the entire basis. So we hope that you take the time to look at the entire supplement. So here's our high-level overview of it. The CSEC supplement has 6 knowledge areas. In the graphic on the right, you see them in the middle: data security, network security, system security, software security down there at 6 o'clock, and coming up the left side, organizational security and societal security. Those are the 6 main knowledge areas. You're going to cover all of them in this course, in that those 5 modules that Mark introduced on the first slide, these topics are woven through all 5 modules. CSEC also talks about, well, if you're going to teach data security in a foundational course, you should teach a little bit of crypto, a little bit of access control, and a little bit about data states. We do that in this course. If you're going to teach network security, you should have a background in network architecture. That's the prerequisite to this course. That's module 0. If you're going to teach about network security, you're going to teach about attacks, and you're going to teach about defenses. You'll see that in this class. If you're going to teach system security, you're going to teach principles, and you're going to teach about system control. Okay, so you understand the gist of the second layer going from the inside out. Okay. The last thing that I want to point out about this graphic is the outer ring in black. And these are what we call 5 recurring themes. And so the 5 recurring themes are CIA, risk, systems thinking, adversarial thinking, and defense in depth. And Mark and I want to take a minute in our next few slides and explain these recurring themes. Why do we think it's important to explain them to you? Because they are woven throughout. Sometimes it's not easy to see them explicitly. They're there nonetheless. In fact, we would probably say that they're, in many ways, they're kind of the backbone of the course. And so we want to explain them to you now so that as you move through the course, you can purposefully look for them. And Mark, sorry about that, went the wrong way. Mark's gonna kick it off by talking about CIA.
Thanks, Melissa. That was a wonderful stage setting. So our first theme is CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And we'll explain where they appear in the modules. Module 1 introduces CIA as the foundation of trustworthy systems. A system is not trustworthy unless we can ensure the CIA triad is indeed intact. Module 2 applies CIA to access controls, system monitoring, any kind of control mechanisms we have. Module 4 explores how encryption and protocols and hashing protect CIA across the 3 states of data. Module 5 touches on the CIA in the discussion of laws and ethics and regulations and formal risk management. The role that it has then is the measuring stick. CIA is the measuring stick of system security and reliability. It grounds discussions on how we make design choices, how we control mechanisms, and what happens when there is a breach. The second theme is risk. It appears in Module 1 as kind of a framework. It frames risk as the consequence of reliance on imperfect systems. We will learn that in Module 1. No systems are perfect, right? Module 2 connects risk to our controls, to the base controls that limit exposure. So it connects risk to principle-based controls. Module 3, we demonstrate how risk emerges across the systems and attack chains. Module 5, we teach how we can assess it formally. So it teaches formal risk assessment, decision-making frameworks, and then we need to remember that risk is both the narrative and an analytical thread. We first use to build intuition, and then we formalize it to support strategy and decision-making.
Thanks, Mark. I'm going to talk about systems thinking for just a minute. You remember, maybe you remember, when I showed you the 6 knowledge areas, that systems security is one of the knowledge areas. But systems thinking is one of the cross-cutting themes. Well, that could be a little bit confusing. And I want to explain the relationship. Anytime you're trying to secure something, you're trying to secure something. So as a knowledge area, system security says, what are those things? But as a cross-cutting theme, systems thinking asks us to think about the relationship of all of the things together, right? So we first meet systems thinking in Module 1. In Module 1, we've got a little bit of a lesson on what is a system and what are systems of systems. And we talk, for example, about the fact that, I'll give you an analogy here, that the heart is a system in the human body. It has component parts that make the heart function. But we also talk about the fact that the heart is a system within a larger system, which is the human body, and it interacts with other systems, the pulmonary system, the nervous system, the circulatory system, to perform broader functions. That's the same kind of thing in cybersecurity, right? You might secure one network, but when that network is a part of a larger supply chain, you have to think about how that network works in the larger system. And so this dual level thinking about what is the system and what systems is it a part of persists throughout cybersecurity. You need to be able to think at both of these levels in order to anticipate and kind of comprehend emergent behavior. Because a lot of what cybersecurity vulnerabilities are due to emergent behavior and due to complexity. So we keep going with this in Module 2, where we actually try to apply systems thinking. We talk about how important it is to try to anticipate and build in security throughout, each step of the system development lifecycle. We talk about thinking through protect, detect, respond, recover, which is kind of a systems thinking approach to security. We talk about how you can use principles and their controls in a coordinated systems thinking fashion. So Module 2 applies systems thinking in many ways. You might remember Module 3 is entitled, it's the red scary module, as Mark called it. It's vulnerabilities, exploits, and attacks. Okay, and so what we do in Module 3 is we understand how an attacker might gain initial access, how an attacker might then move laterally through a system or a system of systems, how they might use that lateral movement to find the place from which they can escalate their privileges and get further inside, further closer to their goal, whatever their goal might be. We talk about those various goals in Module 3. And so you start to understand kind of this, layered conceptual model. I don't mean the OSI model. I mean initial access, lateral movement, getting further deeper inside of a system or a system of systems. And you have to really understand how an attacker might approach that in order to understand how to reasonably try to defend against that. And that's what systems thinking is about in Module 3. Defense in depth is where we kind of culminate all of it. Module 4 is our module on data and data security. And so we link secure design and systems thinking to data architecture, data flows. And then, as Mark said, cybersecurity in context is the title of our 5th module. And here we take and we put cyber systems in the context of society. And that allows us to think about how we don't just use technical means to secure systems, but how we use policy and laws and ethics to shape human behavior in a way that provides a system-level response to these decentralized and distributed challenges. I want you to look carefully at this sentence, cross-cutting role, this sentence. Systems thinking is the mental architecture of this course. And I hope you hang on to that sentence. I hope you write it down. If you can manage to think not just about systems as isolated things, but as things that sit within broader systems, I think that you will really start to be down the road on developing what we call the security mindset. So that's the 4th one, and I'll turn it over. No, that's the 3rd one. I'll turn it over to Mark for the 4th one.
This is the 4th one, is adversarial thinking. I love this one. Thinking like an adversary. What is an adversary? How do they think? Module 1 discusses the fragility of trust, right? It's a fragile thing. It breaks. And how emergent vulnerabilities can arise from unexpected or unintended system behaviors. It's important to remember. Module 2 introduces adversarial thinking through intrusion detection. Here they come. System segmentation, access controls. We're anticipating misuse. We're thinking like an adversary now. Module 3 explicitly develops the mindset, adversarial thinking mindset through case studies, threat actor profiling, which is a good thing, and adversary tactics. In Module 4, we kind of explore how cryptography and data states, privacy protections defend against adversaries seeking to intercept or manipulate, exploit sensitive information, steal your data. Module 5 really reinforces adversarial thinking by examining attacker motivations, right? We're talking about risk in this module, ethical tensions, and cybersecurity as a matter of national and international security. And so we want to think about adversaries and adversarial thinking as a shift in mindset. Teaching learners to anticipate misuse and reverse engineer attacker logic. It turns defense into prediction. And then I think we're ready. We have a nice analogy too. It's kind of interesting to think of, I used to coach football back in the day, and the best defense is a good offense. If you can think like an offender, you can better defend.
That's right. Yep. That's the thing that bridges 4 and 5 together, right?
Yes.
And so the 5th recurring theme is defense in depth. And I want you to know that it doesn't get mentioned explicitly in Module 1, but it is still introduced, even though it's not mentioned explicitly. In Module 1, we talk about the system development lifecycle and the software development lifecycle, and we talk about why it is so important to think about and to build security in from the start. That's one way that you start to practice defense in depth. No system, when it is implemented and operated can be 100% secure. And it's because what we talked about when we talked about systems thinking, because of interactions and emergent behavior. And that's why we need controls, such as access controls, such as system monitoring, other tools that we use to restrict accesses and privilege escalation, such as firewalls, such as network segmentation. And so all of this starts to get operationalized in Module 2. I've already talked to you a little bit about Module 3. So in Module 3, you're working with real-world attacks. I told you you're looking at how access is gained, lateral movement happens, privilege escalation happens, and you're doing all of that so you can start to create like a defense in depth strategy, right? It isn't just a matter of using all of these tools. It's how, when, why, to what extent to use all of these tools. So in my opinion, defense in depth should really be starting to come together and cohere in your mind by the end of Module 3. Module 4, which is about data security, reminds us that we don't just need defense in depth to protect systems. We need it to protect data that is processed by, transmitted by, and stored in these systems. And then that societal security, organizational security that we cover in Module 5, Module 5 is called Cybersecurity in Context, reminds us that defense can also be policy, laws, norms, codes of conduct, organizational rules that work together with our technical controls, our principles, our methods, our tools, to try to do what we said earlier, to try to make sure our systems and our data are trustworthy. So to me, defense in depth is a tactical expression of systems thinking and of adversarial thinking. It helps learners move from reactive fixes to a deep foundational understanding of proactive and resilient design. So we wanted to introduce these 5 cross-cutting themes because some people would tell you that this is what is meant by the security mindset. And when I say a mindset, I mean a way of thinking about things, a way of seeing the world. And a mindset isn't necessarily an easy thing to teach explicitly. It's not facts, it's not concepts, it's not principles, it's not procedures. It's bigger than that. It's more holistic. It's how you take all of those facts, concepts, principles, procedures, and put them together, and use them effectively. We really want you to use them throughout the course. So again, I said it earlier, I'm going to repeat myself. I hope you write these down. I hope you try to consistently look for them, because I think the more that you can use and see and make sense of CIA, risk, systems thinking, adversarial thinking, and defense in depth, the more you are starting to have the security mindset. Couple more things about the course. Mark and I wanted to introduce ourselves because you will see us here and there throughout the course. We deliver some of the material through lectures. Much of the material is delivered through reading because this is a self-paced, asynchronous course. You're going to move through it at your own time. Not only will you interact with us a little bit through the lectures, I also want you to know that some of the homeworks throughout the course and some of the questions on the end of module exams are graded by instructors. So you will have interaction with us or with other instructors that are principal investigators in NCTA at the 7 respective universities. You'll interact with us that way as well. And last but not least, before we close out this overview, we'll probably have a couple of open office hours throughout the course of the summer. We'll post those in Canvas once we decide on the dates, and hopefully you'll be able to come so that we can have some live interaction. So with that, that closes out for me. Anything you wanted to say, Mark?
Well, that would be great to have some live interactions. And I just hope everybody brings their curiosity.
Yeah.
It's important to be curious. It's important to want to learn this.
All right. That's it for us. And I think you're ready to start the class. Let's go ahead and begin.